This is the newest addition to my one tile per episode series, Fort Francia Bay, and in today's video I show you my most American build ever.
God bless America!
I'm Imperatur, and you're watching me building a super wide and high traffic volume arterial road interchange, a rail flyover, and an industrial area expansion all in one episode in the classic Imperatur speed build style. The build time was roughly 6.5 hours. This episode is sponsored by Matthew Stevens. Thank you so much for your huge contribution to the channel. As usual, we start the episode by building the rail and road infrastructure first. We had two endings of railroad tracks in this tile and I brought them together right at the beginning so that they merge in a wide rail corridor. The left rail is only for passenger trains and the right ones are for cargo trains. I also wanted to integrate a cargo terminal so that the paper mill and the industrial area here would have good cargo rail access in general. But that turned out to be a bit more difficult than I thought, as we had various height differences here and I also wanted to cross the river at a relatively high level so that we wouldn't need a lifting bridge or anything else. In the end there will be 6 parallel tracks crossing the river, so it's a big rail corridor that will make a left turn and then probably end up in tunnels in the mountains. I also thought that a Flyover ramp would look cool here so that the passenger tracks run over the cargo tracks to the other side. I'll flesh this out later in the episode, but we'll get to the detailing in the second chapter. In addition, we had several main roads here that came from all ends, so I decided to build a relatively large intersection, but not a freeway interchange in that sense. I thought a simple intersection with traffic lights would be enough here, and I haven't built anything like that in the region yet, so I thought that would be a great idea in that spot. Such wide local roads are often referred to as stroads. It's not necessarily a stroad here, because there are no stores or businesses on the street side, but it's very similar in terms of the width of the lanes and the traffic speed and flow, and that should be relatively large to be fair, as we have a fairly large industrial area. We also have the harbor and many factories with many employees. Unfortunately, I don't really have much traffic in the whole city, except during rush hour. That may be realistic, of course, but I found that the model in City Skylines 1 was the better solution, because there was always roughly the same amount of traffic at all times of the day and night, and you also had a kind of challenge to build your road network as well as possible to avoid long traffic jams, for example from large industrial areas. That was sometimes a real challenge, but in CS2 I have maybe 2 intersections in the city that are hopelessly overloaded at rush hour, but otherwise the city looks like it's deserted and we have 70,000 inhabitants after all. I can't remember anymore exactly where I saw this trick, probably from Teddy Redco, but if you put a big roundabout in the middle and connect all the roads to it and then delete the traffic circle, you get a huge intersection with only one node, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Of course that's a bit finicky and it's sometimes a bit difficult even to get that right, especially getting all the lanes to fit perfectly straight. But in the end it looks relatively cool with this big wide intersection, and with the traffic mod you can also configure the turning lanes and everything so that it looks super realistic in the end. These are of course the strengths of the game, which is why I find it so cool and why I can hardly wait to continue building the city each day. Of course, we'll also widen the road to more lanes where there are turning lanes, especially for the left turns, but there will also always be 2 continuous lanes that just run straight, so we'll get a really big intersection. We also have dedicated right turns on 3 out of 4 sides, so that a good flow of traffic is also guaranteed here. Then at the end I'll add crosswalks and connect connect everything with footpaths on the side. Of course, this type of intersection is very dangerous and even hostile for pedestrians. But I still wanted to give pedestrians the opportunity to get to the other side of the city or the road, and will also lay out a footpath or cycle path on the side of the road so that you theoretically have the opportunity to get around here without a car. The emphasis here is on theoretically, of course. Now it's finally time to build some residential buildings again after we've only built industrial areas in the last few episodes. I'm still trying to place as many office and commercial buildings as possible here, as well as mixed-use buildings. In general, however, I wanted to go for dense urban development again in this part of the city, as it is relatively close to the future city center and we still have a kind of transition zone here. There's not really much more to say to that, to be honest. I placed each building individually with the Plop the Growables mod to get that certain look, and at the end of the day I have more control over which buildings appear and which won't. I also marked all the buildings I needed with the star in Find It, especially for this type of development, so it was relatively easy and quick to build this district, even without zoning. Here I have also detailed the flyover ramp for the passenger trains. For this we built a kind of gallery with the horizontal pillars on which the rails will later lie. The whole process was relatively time consuming, but I think it was definitely worth the effort in the end, as it always looks cooler than if it had just been the bridge. I don't know the exact technical term for such structures, but overpasses like this can often be found on railroad tracks that cross over each other. I also built footpaths here with the cut and fill mechanism, which then has a concrete wall on one side. Later I placed posts so that the ceiling was also supported and the whole build just looked more realistic. At first I actually wanted to leave it as grey as the color of the posts on top, but then I decided to take small bushes and lift them up with Move It, so that we have a green planting on the lid. Like that it will look even better than if we only had the concrete cover. Of course you can't put any big trees on it, but small low vegetation is definitely realistic, and I tried to hint at that with the small bushes, because otherwise there would have been no other way to implement it, as we can't put surfaces on these pillars for example, and to build everything with tunnels would have been a bad idea as well, because the tunnel mechanic in CS2 is complete garbage. In the last chapter, we had to close the remaining gaps that were left, so we had to expand this industrial area here, for example, and I took smaller factory buildings again and placed them next to each other with MoVE to create larger factories or warehouses out of the smaller industrial buildings. I've used this trick quite often, and it makes industrial areas in particular more realistic, because the building sizes of the vanilla 6x6 buildings are simply far too small. The signature buildings, on the other hand, are only a realistic size for large companies, and you don't have many large factories right next to each other. That just doesn't make sense. In addition, we will detail everything as always with a few props like cars and truck trailers. At the very end, we will then also detail the area around the intersection as well as the intersection itself, and then this gap will also be closed. Yes, on my Patreon account you can find the save game, and now it is really an almost square area of the city, and I think even without a real downtown the project is really something to be proud of.
and you won't even know what hit you when I'm done. I'm not done with you. 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 I'm barely even started. I'm not done with you. I barely even started. I'm not done with you. I'm barely even started. And you won't even know what hit you when I'm done. I'm not done with you. I'm barely even started. I'm not done with you. I barely even started. I'm not done with you. I'm barely even started. And you won't even know what hit you when I'm done.
Very cool that you stuck around to the end and watched me build the 20-second tile already, our newest addition to Fort Francia Bay. I'm definitely really pleased with how everything turned out. Here we can see the before and after, and I think our little American Stroad intersection turned out quite nice. If it will see some significant traffic at some point, we'll only find out in future episodes, so stay tuned and subscribe not to miss any of the next videos. Maybe I inspired you to build and detail a suburban intersection too. Who knows? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, you can give the video a like. If you want to support me further, you can visit my Patreon site. There you will find a save game for every episode, and with this addition the city has definitely become one amazing addition richer. You are very welcome to explore everything yourself down to the last detail, but don't forget to download all the mods I used. The mod list is also available there, as well as my graphics settings. And we can also chat a bit and have a nice time, of course. I would like to thank all the people who have already decided to support me on Patreon so much. But can we reach 500 active patrons by next month? There are only a few missing, and that would be absolutely amazing and another big milestone. Your support over there makes videos like this on such a regular basis even possible, so if you want to see more, you know what to do. But now I say see you for the next episode, when we'll continue with the next tile until we fill out the complete map, so please give a like if you support the project. Have a nice day and ciao ciao for now.